Delhi to Sydney,
I was on cloud nine.
which you can do it back here in India also.
I'm an extrovert person,
Meet, mingle with people.
so I love going to social events.
How was the first week in Australia? What was the experience?
I did cry. It was very, very beautiful.
I love to play that game with my students when I get the visa. Why University of Sydney and why Bachelors of Commerce in particular? A Bachelor's in Commerce journey at University of Sydney. So hi, I'm Ritika Gupta, the Director for Planet Education. And today we have Tanishka Bansal, who's studying a Bachelor's of Commerce at University of Sydney. Hi, Tanishka.
Hi.
Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much.
So,
for
you know,
having
it's
me.
really funny that today I'm this side of the table. Otherwise, I'm normally that side answering every question. So, I'm very excited about questioning you and not just answering this time. Right? So, I'm very happy to have you here.
Same here. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Tanishka, to begin with, I would like you to tell me about yourself and what are you currently studying?
Hi, everybody. My name is Tanishka, and I am currently studying a Bachelor's of Commerce, and I'm majoring in Finance and Economics at the University of Sydney. And I have always loved numbers since my childhood, since my mom is a maths teacher. So I really, really love playing around numbers. And apart from academics, I love doing podcasts, one of the major reasons I'm sitting here. And I love writing, journaling, composing poetry, and all sorts of public speaking activities really interest me.
Lovely. So, why Australia for your higher education? Why not any other country?
I think because Australia is very, very beautiful, and also because all of the universities really, really come in the top rankings. And since I'm studying in University of Sydney, it is one of the most prestigious institutions in the world. So I really wanted to study in Australia.
Well, you answered half of my question that I was going to ask, but yeah, yes, you said Uni Sydney. So, any specific reason that there are other universities also? Why University of Sydney and why Bachelors of Commerce in particular?
It's because University of Sydney allows you to choose a lot of combination of subjects. So it's like, because I'm studying Bachelor's of Commerce, I'm just not entitled to complete everything in the commerce stream. There's something known as a shared pool, which allows me to take subjects from different faculties. So that is the reason I'm doing economics, because they don't consider economics under a business stream. They consider it under arts stream. And I was getting the combination of both of the majors I wanted to do within this particular degree. And that is why I went for Sydney.
So, normally in India, when we talk about BCom, that's the short form of the degree that you're doing. So, it comes to your mind it's only commerce and accounts. So, why Uni Sydney BCom? So, I mean, were you not, you could have done a BCom here itself. So, why there?
I think it's a very good question, because the way the university structures the course, like I said, it's not just entitled to commerce, but they put in some of the major core electives or core units that you have to do in order to graduate. And in those, you get a hands-on experience for consulting. And one of the other ones I did was you get a basic knowledge of statistic and regression analysis, which I don't think most of the Indian colleges cover, and they don't. I'm not for sure if they cover the consulting experiences, but what we learned as in being there was to work with hands-on company in Australia and consult their queries and opinions about whatever challenges they were facing at that time. And throughout my degree, I've completed a lot of cores, and we had one core known as leadership in business also. So we really knew like there was a foundation. We really knew about how we started with consulting, and then whatever we did, like how we could enhance it, and add in some leadership perspectives into it, and how like a team works together. And other than that, I also had two of my major units, which were all about collaboration. So anyone can work individually, but to be successful, it is always, everyone coming together and then reaching to success. So my degree covered mostly all of that. And then it also covered practical experience. Like I'm doing finance, it covered how I can invest in a company, and I had to do my own research. I had to sometimes write research projects, and sometimes in group projects we had to evaluate the current company using the current data from all different websites. And I think it really gives you exposure, and it really makes room for you to think about how you can come to a particular conclusion and then see if you want to invest in a company or not.
So, summing up, I would say that a BCom here to a BCom there, here it is very limited to microeconomics and finance, whereas in BCom in Australia per se, or maybe in Uni Sydney, you have more options to choose from in your semesters, and the exposure is much more vast, right?
Yes, definitely, because you can also choose subjects from different faculties that interest you.
So, were there any concerns before you thought of moving abroad for your education? Any fear or any good things or something? I mean, what was it? How did you plan that? Okay, I want to study abroad.
I think I'm opposite to almost everybody I've met. Like, I think almost everybody has this fear of being away from family. Of course, I miss my family while being there, but I don't think I ever felt that I'm going to feel majorly homesick and that's the reason I don't want to go. I think I always, when I was in 12th standard, I heard abroad for the first time, and like studying abroad for the first time. I heard that for the first time. And I had been to so many different countries with my family. I think the nature, environment, and the people there, and the exposure that you get in abroad is really different from where you have been living. And there's a famous line that says that whatever you do in your 20s, just go to the other side of the world and just be in that other side of the
True.
world to
True.
like experience different things, because you always have two options.
Yeah.
Either you can choose to stay in your comfort zone like you have been staying since your childhood, summing up 15 or 16, 17 years, or you have that option to choose to build a life on your own. And I think I always had that idea of building the life on my own. And
So you were the daredevil kinds, like,
Yeah.
okay, bring it on, I'm going to take it
Yes.
forward. Lovely. Okay, one question that I do know the reaction, but I would want you to share it with my students and my viewers. How do you feel when you receive the visa?
I was on cloud nine. I was on cloud nine because I remember you calling me, I think at 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning. And that was a very unusual time for you to call me because I'm usually sleeping and you know that. So the moment I received, I think I received 2 missed calls or something. And my instant, like the brain, I think it catched that it's something related to visa. And I think when I called you back, you were doing all sorts of, talks, but you were not coming to the main point. And I was like, and I think
I love to play that game with my students when I get the visa.
And I think after 5 minutes, I was like, it's enough. Can you just tell me what's the, outcome of my visa? And then when you finally...
Your first question is it a rejection? Please tell me.
Yes. So I think when you said that it's approved, I could not believe it. And if you remember, I told you to send me the visa.
I said I very vividly remember your reaction, but I want you to share it here on the camera.
So I was on cloud nine and I could not believe that, the thing that I wanted since so long and the thing that I was dreaming about is finally about to come true.
So in your transition to Australia, how was the first week in Australia? What was the experience like? Because see, many dream and they see a lot of reels, which are true, untrue, little made up. So I want you to tell my viewers exactly what was your first week, how special or traumatizing, or I mean, whatever. Share your feelings, whatever. True.
So the first week in Australia, I think I really loved it. I went with my mom. My mom went to drop me to Sydney. And the moment I think I stepped out of the airport, I could just see two things: that I'm finally in a different country, and that I'm finally living in or standing in, a beautiful environment, nature, surrounded with good people. And then after we reached our accommodation, so it was near to the university only. So I could see the university logo also, and I felt like really happy that I made it here. And when we went inside the accommodation, I think I was a little nervous about living alone because like I said, like I never lived alone before. So I was a little nervous, but then I think it really didn't hit me because my mom was there still, and we had to, like, after we settled and checked in to my accommodation, we had to go back to the hotel. So it really didn't strike me then. But yeah, we completed the major first steps, like opening a bank account, taking travel cards. Like we have Metro cards here in India. We have something known as Opal cards in Sydney. So we had to take those. And then we completed the major pass. Like we needed groceries the first day we landed. So we needed those. And then apart from that, we did a tour of the university. So I was amazed by the architecture, and I really, really loved
Beautiful.
it. It's very beautiful.
Absolutely
It's known as
beautiful.
Hogwarts. Yes, it's known as Hogwarts, and like I couldn't believe, like I really never received. I did receive my visa for Sydney, but I felt like I was standing in like Hogwarts. So even though I did never received a Hogwarts invitation, I was there. And then I think what I recall is we completed major formalities. We applied for USI. There's a USI number that we have to apply for. We completed that. And apart from that, in the first week, we majorly toured around Sydney. We went to Opera House, went to Darling Harbour. Every Saturday night, they also have this fireworks thing. So we were sitting, and I remember we were sitting somewhere near the restaurant. So it was an Indian restaurant. And we were sitting together and having dinner there. And suddenly these firecrackers from behind, they're like, everybody is making so much, noise. And there was so much of excitement within those people. So we were like, okay, we have to see what this is. And we went, and then we got to know that, Darling Harbour, there are always fireworks on Saturday. And apart from that, then we planned a trip to Blue Mountains and Kiama. So we went there. So majorly my first week was exploring a lot of Sydney,
Getting to know more about it.
getting to know more about the country, getting to know more about people. And in my first week, I think I only had one of the welcome orientations that the university hosts. So I was meeting different kinds of people from all across the backgrounds. And I think I met a lot of new people there.
Talking about new people, how well did you adapt to the new culture, new language, lingos? I mean, how in Australia it is. How easy was the transition?
I'm being very honest, I'm an extrovert person. So I love going to social events and I love making new friends. So there's this major thing in UCIT. They host this entire welcome program for 7 days. So 7 to 10 days, they're always doing something or the other. And even in semester, like, between whenever we have classes or something or the other is always going on. So I loved to go to those events. So the moment the registration would open, I would just, like rush to those events. But I remember when
And get your freebies as well.
Yes. So I remember so UCIT hosts like, a major welcome program where there are so many clubs and societies. And in the quadrangle area, they put all of these clubs and societies. They have different stalls. So you get to actually go and visit, they have societies of the major you're studying. And UCIT has so many majors. So they have a society for almost every major. So you get to know your major better. And
So irrespective of what you've chosen, what you've not chosen, you can visit each and every.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
That's interesting.
And they had 2 or 3 Australian brands. What they do is they also have this important information. Like I said, all the banks they have on the ground, or they have, mental health services, which are really, really important. So they have every stall allocated. So I distinctly remember going to, those welcome programs, and there was this huge line of people because, of course, you're getting freebies. And of course, you're getting to know your university better. Yes. So you're getting to know all of this, better. So people would just line up. And because my mom was there with me, so we usually used to line up together and then, see different things and, get to know the university better. So that's how I actually met 2 of my good friends. So we were in this line for I think it was a makeup product, or no, wait, it was some Samsung Galaxy something promotion was going on, and there was this stall. So we all were standing in the line, and my mom was standing in front of me. So there were, I think, there was a group of Indian people there, and those people approached my mom, thinking that my mom is doing a master's there. So those people
Well,
approached.
she does look that young, so
Yeah,
can't
she
blame
is.
them.
So they started to ask, like, what she was studying and everything. So she was like, no, I'm here to drop off my daughter. And then that's how I met them. So that was my first group in UCID. But of course, I now throughout the university, then I went, as in when you go to lectures, you go to tutorials, you make so many more friends. And I remember this one of my course. It's called Bus 1000, Future of Business. So my tutorial was allocated on a Friday 8 a.m. And I took it out of very determination that I'm going to just go for an 8 a.m. class, and then rest of the day, I would have to myself and everything. Um, so I dreaded waking up for that, but I did end up making a lot of good friends from that group. And one of my best friends, she is I met through Bus 1000 only, and I don't think we ever spoke before being in a group project together. So what our tutor used to do was allocate small groups, and then give us this consulting project we had to work on, and discuss, and then come to conclusions, or just answer the questions or whatever. So I never really spoke to her before. I think he divided us into separate groups, and I used to sit in the first bench. So I really never wanted to leave the group that was in the first bench. But there was this 20 or 30% group project, and he was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mingle everybody in the class. So you get exposure with all sorts of people, not just with the people you've been sitting since so long. And that's when it happened. So I was disheartened at first, that I don't know anybody in the group, but then it's fine. Like, I'll get to know. Like, I'm an extrovert person. I love to meet new people. So I was like, okay, I'm going to know. It's fine. And then we all started discussing ideas and everything. And she was so sweet. She used to, like, she was like a mother to our group. She used to take care of everybody.
She was from India?
No. She's from China.
Okay.
But she lives in Australia.
Okay.
Yes.
So she's Australian citizen.
Yes.
All right.
So she was like a mother to our group. She used to get us coffee, because we used to meet up like really early before a tutorial to discuss what's happening with the group. So 7:30 or something we used to meet up. 8 o'clock was our presentation or something. So we had so many practices, and she was like, everybody is hungry or something. She's gonna get breakfast, and she like really cared for us. And I think apart from that. Again, when I started sitting in the classes again, I think I was talking to her, and naturally she became one of my very close friends.
It's nice, lovely to hear that. And if we talk about, so we talked about people, we talked about university in Sydney in particular, and the main thing why we went there for. So academically, how would you describe teaching style at Uni Sydney compared to India? So I mean, how you learned in school and how you've what you've been exposed to in Sydney. How would you compare the two?
Okay, so I think in most of the schools, it's just like you have periods, and then you have, for example, you have business studies, period accounts, or economics. The teacher just comes in, teaches you, maybe gives you some notes, questions, and then you're done with the class. That's not the same in universities, especially abroad. What UCID has is they have lectures and they have tutorials. So, for example, if you're allocated to a particular unit that you're studying, lectures usually have. There are so many people enrolled in one unit that lectures are also divided into 2 lectures. So there are different timings, and they're divided usually into 2 or 3 lectures depending on the cohort that's enrolling in the unit. So usually I think it's just 2 lectures and 2 different timings, obviously. So those lectures constitute of like 300, 400 people that are sitting in like what you may call a cinema theater. So like a lecture theater. There are so many people.
And you've shared some very nice, interesting pictures with some bean bags lying around here and there.
Yeah.
And it's just not like a typical classroom of bench and table that we have in our Indian system. Even in universities, there are like those hard benches. Whereas I was quite surprised to see those lovely bean bags and people are just lying down here and there and just listening to the lecture. Very casual and at home kind of a feeling, very comfortable.
Yes, and even the lecturers, they are are so welcoming and so warm, and they make sure that you understand everything that they are teaching in the class. They usually teach from slides.
Okay.
They don't have books, or they don't have any.
So those slides are shared with you later?
Yes, no, those slides are uploaded before our lecture so that
Okay.
we can have a look
Read
at
through it.
what the lecturer is going to teach.
Yeah.
And she or he basically just goes through all of the slides in detail. There are some points that are not always mentioned in the lecture. They might just put some interesting photographs
Right.
to explain you later what it is about, and
Right.
what
Leaving it very
concepts.
ambiguous, and so that the
Yes.
curiosity kills the cat, and that's
Yeah.
how you.
So they have these well-formulated slides. And then we have something called as tutorials. So tutorials are basically tested upon your last week's lecture. The tutor and lecturer or professor are two different kinds of things. So the tutor is a totally different person. And what he or she does is basically tests you, or, along with your entire class, he or she basically goes through a lot of questions that you have already studied last week.
So are you saying that it's a verbal discussion rather
Yes,
than
yes.
pen and paper, like how typically we're supposed to write long answers?
Yeah.
Those kind of exams don't happen there?
No, not in tutorials.
Uh-huh.
It's just tutorials are discussion room, and they are relatively smaller than lectures also. Like in a tutorial, there would usually be 10 to 20 people,
Okay.
so that you understand the concept better. And there are so many different times for tutorials, like 8, 9 for a course.
Okay.
So you just choose your own time, and if you get it, you're allotted in that tutorial, or the university allots you in a different tutorial. The university makes sure you have a tutorial and a lecture for
Right.
every unit. And they basically, the tutor is just giving you questions upon the last week's lecture so that you understand the concept better. And there's this verbal discussion.
It's kind of a revision of what has already happened last week.
Yes,
Okay.
they are very, very important, because the tutor teaches you, they don't teach you. The tutors, they engage with you in the class, and they encourage discussion for the particular topic with your group.
If you have to put it in numbers, how theoretical or how practical are the lessons? I mean, is there something that you need to mug up, like how in an typical Indian education system it is, that you need to mug up and reproduce on paper? So you're saying that you don't have to write those 3-hour long exams, that how it is here in India. So how, I mean, could you throw a little light for our viewers that how are the exams per se? How are you graded? You said once was tutorials where they understand and test your knowledge and they mark you on that. And apart from that?
Apart from that, you have mid-semester exams or you have final exams. It depends entirely on what unit you're taking. Some might not even have a final exam. Some might just be, divided into assignments. You have to work with assignments. Mostly tutorials are graded, but if it's not graded for your course or unit, then they're just the weightage. So it's like 100% weightage. They divided into different parts, like assignments or like group presentations, individual presentations, individual project or something like that. So throughout a unit, what they do is, like I have had some units that had mid-semester and final. So they constituted a major part of my 100% weightage. And then apart from that, it was just a tutorial participation, maybe attending lectures, that they allocate some attendance to it. But mostly what happens is, in mid-semester, they usually cover some kind of week's course that's coming and that's tested in the exam. You can either have multiple choice, and you can also have short answer questions. You can also have long answer questions. And I'm not saying that you don't have to learn things. If it's purely theoretical unit, you have to of course learn things. But if it's let's say it's numerical, because my course mostly had numerical because I'm doing finance, so it's like mostly numerical. It's understanding all the concepts, and they would give you questions, and then you have to work it out in the exam or something like that. And then final exams mostly constitute, I think, a higher weightage than the mid-semester exams.
Okay.
And it's totally up to your coordinator if they want to set MCQs, if they want to do short answers, long answers. But I have given all sorts of exams. Some of my units only had MCQs.
Okay.
Some of my units had a mixture of MCQs and long answers. So you do have to write long answer, questions in the exam. Some of my units, because I'm also doing economics, some of my units also really needed how we make those diagrams, and the professor tests us
So
on those
you've been
diagrams.
mentioning a lot like units and everything. So do you plan your timetable, or with every course it's a fixed timetable that functions? How does that work?
It's not a fixed timetable. There is something known as timetable preference that opens, I think, mostly 1 month before your before your classes actually begin. So you have 4 units per semester. That's the average workload. You have 4 units, and you have this timetable preference. You can put preference for each lecture and tutorial. However, if it's full, they move you to a different lecture or tutorial. But the university makes sure you're allocated to every other lecture or tutorial that you have to do. But mostly, our preferences are always considered. Like I've rarely seen people shifting from one preference to another. But yeah, if it gets full, then you have to obviously choose another
Obviously. First come,
timing.
first serve basis.
Yes, it's like that.
Okay. So here, like, the professors, normally students I've seen are running after professors and teachers that, they would want some clarity. Suppose in a tutorial, you dozed off, you were sleeping, you did not listen to what they were saying, and you had some questions. So how accessible are the professors, the tutors over there? If you have any doubts, can you connect with them on a one-on-one? How does it work?
I think they're very understanding. And even if you go to them after the class or after the tutorial has ended, they usually answer your questions. And I have seen majorly when mid-semester final exams are approaching, people do book one-on-one consultations because
Okay, you can do that online.
yes, no,
Online.
online and in person also.
Okay.
You can do it throughout the semester, but
Right.
mostly I've seen people, when only exams are approaching,
Exams.
they
Obviously,
would always
we have that human tendency that
Yes.
we want to bring it just on the time when the exams are on your head.
and they are very supportive. I remember I went to one of the consultations in my economics class for my economics class before my final exam, and I had a lot of doubts. So obviously I couldn't do it online. So I went in person, and my tutor sat with me with so much patience, and he was like, okay, I'm going to explain you. I had like 5-10 questions, and he put out the papers, and he was drawing diagrams for me, explaining me that this is how it's done, it's fine. And so you can always approach to your tutors and your professors. They're the most sweetest people, and they always understand, and they always clarify your doubt. You can
That's-
never go hanging in your brain that I didn't understand this concept.
That's so nice to hear that. So we've talked about the academics, why University of Sydney, why commerce. A little about your campus life. What would you like? What is the campus life in Uni Sydney when you're not studying, when you don't have much to do, and I believe you don't have classes all 6 days a week, right? So how many days do you have classes, and what do you do in the other days that you don't have classes? So how is the campus life? How's the experience there?
When I started in my first year, I didn't take timetables preferences very seriously. So I just put in random preferences, and I had classes every day. But then we got to know that, from second semester, what we can do
Because
is
of the that backlog of Indian system that we have to have
Exactly,
classes every
every
day.
day.
So
yeah, so naturally that came to my mind, and then what I did was I thought that it was also you have to put preferences. I always thought that it has to be every day. You can't leave
Skip
a day
it.
off. Exactly. So I naturally put classes those way, but then we got to know that's not how university can function. They give you timetable preferences for a reason, so that if you have any other work, or if you have any other or if you just want a day off from your classes just to prep for classes, you can always do that within the week. So second semester we all got to know, okay, this is not how it functions.
yeah, you learn step by step. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
new exposure to you. There are things that you figure out when you've been there. So yeah. So how was it? I mean, what
So
after this? I mean, so first semester you took it as a normal, typical college life
Yeah.
by classes every day. So second semester, when you learned the truth and you got to know the tactics, then what?
second semester, then we started planning our timetable very, very seriously. And what we almost did was we always kept. I mean, I as an individual always want my long weekend. So what I did was I usually planned my classes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or even Monday, Tuesday, and then have the rest of the week off. It's not always that you can manage to do that, because if there are some units that have compulsory classes only on Fridays, you have to take it. You can't shift it to Monday. So university gives you a list of options to choose your timetable from, but if they have some compulsory class on a day that you don't have any other classes, you have to go to that. But
And what apart from your classes, campus life में what क्या करते थे तुम ये
so
बताओ?
campus life, as I said, there are so many other things going on in the university. There's this USU, University of Sydney Union, and they have 250 plus clubs and societies. What they do is they keep organizing events throughout the week. You will never feel that you're left lonely somewhere because you have something or the other up on that USU app.
Can you throw more light on what are the kind
So
of?
they can do painting workshops. They do bracelet making workshops. They do any types of
And that's chargeable or
no,
it's
no,
free
no,
of
no, no. It's
cost?
all free.
Oh,
So
interesting.
this USU has an app. You go to the app store, you download this USU app. It's for free. So you log in with your I think student number, and then you log in with your email, phone number or something, and then you just get the membership for as long as you're a University of Sydney student. So you
Right.
get that membership. You have to renew it every year.
Okay.
But that's also free. So you have to just renew it every year.
There's a little bit of paperwork.
Yes. So you just have to renew it, and that's also done through the app. It's very accessible. So you have the app in the phone, and you just keep on renewing your membership. There's also this USU rewards that is costing something, but then you get extra perks for it also. But mostly people have USU free membership, so you get that. And then, as I said, there are so many clubs and societies. Those clubs and societies keep on throwing everything or the other,
Okay.
one thing or the other. So as I said, painting workshops, bracelet making workshops. I've gone to workshops that are making your own perfume, and I think maybe just a stress reliever, workshop, like just come socialize, food is on them, and then make
Well,
more.
that's your favorite one,
Yes.
right?
Make more friends, just hang around on the campus, or there are so many different types of societies. Like there's some tea society or chocolate society. They keep on hosting events that make you try different types of chocolates or different types of tea.
Lovely. So you're getting everything for free and wow.
Yeah. So that's about the campus life. And I think even if you don't know about like, for example, you missed some registration, or for example, you didn't really see what kind of an event is happening for the next week or this week. The moment you maybe step out on the campus, you will see so many different kinds of stalls, any society is putting up, and they are trying to tell you what they're doing and then giving you some incentive or something or the other.
So you can just walk into any
Yes,
event.
yes.
A pre-registration is not a mandate.
There are certain events that require registration, but I'm saying that on the campus, when they have some stalls, as in open stalls, you can always walk into that. But if they have any rules for registrations, and if you have not met them, they usually will not allow you because they are also full of capacity.
Right.
So they will not allow you. So you have to be really mindful when the registration is open. But
That's
there
what
are-
I keep telling my students, that if you want to enjoy the campus life, you have to be there. If you're sitting in a room, nobody's going to pull you out
Yeah.
and tell you. So you need to be exploring the campus in and around. You've gone there for a reason, not to sit in your AC room.
Yes.
Which you can do it back here in India also. So when you're spending so much, and you should explore, be there, just meet, mingle with people. It's very important, and that gets you networking. You make new friends also. So maybe you, as you mentioned, you went to the perfume making workshop. So maybe somebody like-minded you must have met who otherwise you would have not known. So it's important, to be on the campus, explore what's going on. It's really, really important. One thing that I would like you to throw light, which I know you've not done, but yes, part-time jobs. What do you? I mean, I know you've not done it because you were enjoying, and but yeah, I mean, I'm sure your friends must be doing it. So, what is their thought process? What do you have to share on that?
I think most of my friends who have done it, it's just like the side income for them, and they manage their expenses through that very well. And it's just like, I think, getting a little exposure about how your job really works. So once you step into the role that you want to actually do in corporate, or maybe whatever role that you want to do in life, it kind of really gives you that experience of how professionalism works, because even these are like casual or part-time jobs, they really treat it very seriously. And I've seen all of the Australians, high school children always doing part-time jobs.
Let's move on to the next question. Is that we always say that I asked you this question that we always say that part-time jobs do cover your cost of living, which you said that yes, partly or mostly yes, but yeah, you wouldn't want to answer that very completely because you were not too much enrolled into it. I mean, yeah, why? But
I think I enjoyed my own comfort. That's it. And I wanted to explore more of the country because I'm there. Who knows? If I just move away after 3 years, and of course, I'd explore something else.
so you preferred exploring the country than working. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
dad's a rich man, so he could afford it.
I mean, it's like you're there in a country for 3 years, and you know, I had this curiosity to explore every part of it that I could.
That's nice. That's also part of, that's a way of looking at, like sometimes they say that, okay, that's a question, ROI. And so, yeah, if you can afford it, yes, explore everything. You're there, you probably may not, may go back. I mean, situations differ for
Yes,
every
that's what.
student. Yeah, are there any tips when you talk about cost? Are there any tips that you would like to share with my students, my viewers, about how to make their stay a little cost effective?
I would say, firstly, focus on your academics in 11th and 12th because that matters a lot. And you do end up getting scholarships for good marks. So I think that cuts half of your cost that you're bearing on tuition. And in terms of living expenses or grocery expenses, I think it's the best, to look for maybe apartments with friends. I think first semester everybody chooses on
The
campus
university accommodation,
accommodations
yes.
because they get to know
Safety,
the
get to explore.
it's safer and you get to know where you can live and how much you can travel every day. So everybody then just moves in with friends and everything. That's like a really cost cutting thing. And then everybody makes
Moving around in a group, you mean to say, rather than an
yes.
individual plan and
Yeah, yeah.
sharing the cost.
And making food
Makes sense.
together, that cuts down everything. And I think that really enhances your friendship also, and
That's
makes
kind of a bond that you actually stays with you for life.
yes.
Okay, so is there any episode or any challenge that you faced in your academic journey, or I mean your life in Sydney till now? Is there something that is worth mentioning that you like to share with us?
When I went in my first semester, being from a CBSE board, I did not know that how the university actually expects me to write assignments. They have this major module on plagiarisms and everything, so you can't directly copy paste from Google or any
Which
other
most of the
website.
Gen Zs nowadays love to do.
And I think in India, it's also, you take the help from Google, and mostly in our school, we always used to do that,
Yes.
copy paste, and it's done. In Australia, and I think everywhere abroad, it's not the case. So I struggled with writing an assignment. I struggled how to frame an assignment, and I was like, I don't know anything.
How did you overcome that?
I honestly went to my tutor. I just sat with him and I told, look,
So it does answer my question that I asked you earlier, that
Yes.
how receptive or helpful the tutors and
Yes.
the lecturers are.
So I just told them, look, I'm from a CBSE board. I don't know how IB functions.
Right.
I have never had that experience. I don't know what you guys mean by not copying from Google, because I have done that my entire 15 years and I don't know what you're really thinking.
So unlearn and learn again was
Yes.
something that you had to do.
And he explained me that you have thousands of websites to research articles on. You have been given a particular topic to write assignment. Go to those websites. I think he mentioned Google Scholar. There's this UCIT library website. It's very, very nice. There are so many articles, and there's something known as peer-reviewed articles, and there's something known as articles that are already there. So many journals, articles, papers are published. So he was like, that is your first go. Second is this Google Scholar. There are so many different websites. Even if you search randomly on Google, like you do it, like you have done,
Yeah.
you just have to get what they're saying and you have to write that in your own words. You don't have to
Right.
blindly copy. So I think
नकल के लिए भी अकल चाहिए.
yeah. So वही है कि that was one of the best, I think, advices that I got from my tutor, and
that you would like to pass on to
everybody.
people who are
Exactly.
thinking.
And
Yes.
my marks have only increased in assignments after that.
Lovely. That's so wonderful.
Yeah. Then I was okay with writing assignments. I was like, I love writing assignments more than I love writing exams.
So you have mentioned that you're an extrovert and you're very excited about coming to Australia and being there. So, was there a time that you actually felt really homesick, and how did you overcome that? If you did.
Of course, I miss my family, but I have never. I think I like enjoying by myself also. I love living alone.
But you mean to say there was nothing, not a moment
When my
that you felt
mom-
that, oh, I need to go back?
when my mom left Sydney after settling me there, I did cry because I would not see her for the next, I think, 3-4 months. So I did cry, and then I realized that okay, my family's not going to be around since the first thing that I wake up in the morning, I'm not going to get any breakfast or anything
Laid
prepared.
on the princess treatment is gone.
So I did feel homesick for first few weeks, but I think as I mentioned, there are so many things going around the campus, and I think classes keep you so busy that
So you have to keep your
Self-busy.
self-busy,
Yeah.
positive, and so see if you, as it said, you cry alone, and you laugh, the world laughs with you. So you have to involve yourself, get busy.
Yeah.
That's the best way not to feel homesick.
I remember one time it was just, I think, near December or something. No, not near December. It was August, end of August or something, that I really, really felt homesick. And that's surprising because I felt that in second year. Never in the first year, but then second year, I was feeling very, very low. And I think the first person I immediately reached out to was my favorite teacher from school. I just texted her, ki, I'm feeling very, very low and I just need a call. And I think within 2 seconds, she just called me and she was like, what has happened? And I was in a call, for a good while, and she was like, it's going to be fine, you're going to come back in December, it's fine, abhi to kuch nahi kar sakte. So she tried to comfort me. She was there on the call. She told me that like, I did not eat anything since morning, so she was like, okay, get up, make food or something like that. That was the only thing. I think I cried for 15-20 minutes.
And you missed your curry also.
Yes.
Your home made curry. All
Yes.
the time you would be ranting about it.
So that was one major episode of homesickness. But I don't think, like, after that also, like, I was fine with it because classes and assignments
More or
again
less
start.
it was doable.
Yeah.
Right? So looking back to all that we've discussed, Tanishka, is there something that you would have, any one thing that you'd like to have done differently? What you've done, how you've done, is there something that you like to change, or very briefly, if you could just share with us?
I think if I could start over again, I got this advice from one of the university reps to never ignore your Outlook emails. And Outlook sends like 1,000 emails per day. Nobody has that, I think, pressure, or nobody has that mindset to read all of those. I think that was the biggest mistake, because every email contains some of the other opportunity, and I think I really missed on everything since the starting. So I think if I could start back from first semester, I would never skip Outlook emails. Never, ever.
So, talking about your personal growth, okay, how do you think this whole experience up till now has changed you as a person, your personality? How has it blossomed you in a better person, I would say?
I think I've changed drastically because when I was in my home, when I was surrounded by my family and everything, I was getting, food. I was any, like, even if I was not well at times, my mom used to be there beside me, checking up on late night also and everything. And once you go there, you're completely on your own. Of course, you have friends to support you, but then I think most of the strength just comes from within you. So I started being very independent, and I managed my meals on my own. When I was not well, also, I just used to cook
You
for myself.
started cooking well.
Yes, I started cooking well.
I remember you sharing your cooking skills and pictures, everything
Yes.
around.
So I started cooking and taking medicines on time, which is the most difficult challenge for me. But taking medicines on time, and I think one of the most major changes in me was in India. I was always surrounded by my friends. So either I'm going out or my family. Like I'm going out with my friends or family. Once I moved there, I knew the importance of friends, but people are not available every time according to your own timetable or on your own needs. And at first, I was like, okay, why will I go alone? But in these 3 years, I think the most I have gone out with someone is just myself.
So you figured out yourself, your space, and how, as they always say, that if you really want to enjoy something, learn to enjoy with yourself.
Yes, just go. Like, why do you have to wait for others always to say yes to everything?
Absolutely.
So I've gone to restaurants alone. I've gone to, just maybe
which you probably
any.
wouldn't have done here in India ever.
No. Now I can.
Yeah.
Now I'm fine
So
with it.
looking ahead now, what are your future plans? You're almost at the brim of finishing your course, and you'll be done by this winter. So what are your plans ahead? What do you think? Are you scared about entering the job market? What is it? What does it come to your mind now?
Yeah, like since firstly I can't believe that my degree is almost over, and I'm really, really, nervous about entering into the job market. But I do believe that God has a plan for everyone, and I believe in destiny. So no matter how much
And hard work.
Yes.
That's what you've been doing.
Yes. No matter how much I believe in something, or no matter how much, I want something, if it's not for me, it will not come to me. And whatever is meant for me will make the way on its own, and I will be there and be happy with whatever
Lovely.
God has planned for me.
So we've had a beautiful session about how and what of your life in Uni Sydney, and before that and after that and during that. Uh, I would like you to throw some advice for the students who are looking for studying overseas, not particularly in Uni Sydney maybe, but yes, overseas. So what is your advice for students who are considering Uni Sydney? Okay, since you are at Uni Sydney. Quick, short answers.
Never be afraid of stepping out of your comfort zone. Always, always saying yes to everything. And UCIT is such a wonderful place that everybody loves it. Everybody just wants to be, around good company. And I think the best parts of UCIT is that it'll never ever leave you feeling lonely. Never.
Okay. What are the misconceptions students have about studying abroad?
I think
You would
one
have
of-
also had, since you said it came to you only grade 12th. So, what are the misconceptions that you did not think about it earlier?
I think the most important one is, that abroad mein koi padhai nahi hai. It's just like, a lot of exposure. I think people just go for that. I think that's not true. Because, you have been accustomed to learning and writing exams throughout your life. But there you actually have practical experiences working with real life companies. You're not given any hypothetical imaginary companies, and you're given a room where you can actually voice out your opinions on real life problems. So I think that's the biggest misconceptions. And it's just wonderful when you go there and when you learn all of this.
So, you feel that studying abroad, is it worth the investment?
Definitely. If you're determined and if you want to build something in what you're studying abroad, it is definitely the biggest step that you can take in your life. And it's, going to just give you a lot of courage to do things differently also. And just to be where you want to be.
Very important question now that I'm going to shoot at you is, how did your counseling experience go? How did it help you to get to this decision? Very important for me. and you have to be very honest. Just because you're talking to me, it doesn't have to be any sugar coated. Very honest experience.
So, you know me, I don't sugarcoat.
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
very
but
straightforward.
still-
I would say that I remember that we briefly spoke about the application at first, and then I was a little hesitant. And then I think after that, well, I was like, okay, if it's meant to happen, it will happen. So you just told me that, okay, why don't we consider Australia, right? And then you just put in my applications, and you showed me, I think you showed me brochures of different universities. And you even made me speak to some of the reps of the university.
Because I never sell a university. I have to see where are you fitting in, what's your goal, what do you want to be, where you want to be.
And you really considered my choices. And when I told you that I really wanted to mix different streams in my degree, you were like, use it as the option for you, because it really allowed like a share pool in the degree. And then
It has 400 majors.
yes, and then you can choose in undergrad, you can choose shared pools. I don't know if it's in masters.
A little less.
A
but
little, yeah.
Because by
So-
masters, you're more sure of what you want to do, so they don't need to provide you with so many.
Yes, and I think because you're such a warm and loving person.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
I really loved speaking with you. It felt like more like personal connection than counseling also. So you really helped me figure out what I wanted to study, and then you obviously helped me in my visa, and yeah, it was a success.
What advice would you give to parents choosing an educational counselor? What are the qualities they should look at when they're choosing a counselor for themselves?
I think it's very important for parents to see that the counselor or even the private agency, they have the social media presence, or maybe check their LinkedIn to see if they're legitimate. And some of the qualities I think would be, that they're learned, they know what they're doing. They are not just blurting out random stuff that anybody could, but they give you honest and genuine advice. They help you shortlist what your interest lies in and what degree you can choose after you have mentioned your interests. And they have good knowledge about the universities, they have good knowledge about the country that you're looking forward to go to. And I think it's the best if you have someone on show to talk to. Like you have so many people that I could connect even
Yeah.
before moving to Australia. So I think it's very, very important that counselors really, really have all of these qualities and give you like an honest advice, not just trying to sell any university, but really seeing where your future lies.
True that. Okay, now my favorite part, rapid fire. Okay, Sydney or India?
Sydney.
I knew that. Coffee or chai?
Coffee.
Morning lecture, evening tutorial?
Morning lecture.
Okay. Library or cafe?
Library.
Favorite Australian food?
No idea.
No idea.
Sirf
Wow.
coffee hai.
Okay. Favorite place in Sydney?
Opera House.
One word to describe Uni Sydney?
Hogwarts.
Best memory from the past 3 years?
Friends.
Dream company you'd like to work for?
JP Morgan.
One piece of advice in one sentence for students planning to study abroad?
Confidence.
One sentence.
Have confidence and faith in yourself. Always trust God.
Okay, now the closing question that I'm going to be asking you, and it's been a lovely question and answer, and I'm so glad you answered everything from the heart, where my students could make an informed decision. And the reason for having this podcast is only that they understand what the reality is. Because see, obviously, me as a counselor or an educationist, I would probably be a little biased on what I would want to say, probably, though I don't do that. But still, coming from you as a student who's studying there, I wanted to bring out the true life experience, hurdles, whatever the concerns are, and wanted to bring it front to my students, my viewers. And yeah, so my closing question to you would be, if you could go back 3 years and speak to your younger self before boarding that flight to Sydney, what would you say?
I would just say that you can do it and that you will enjoy your time in Sydney. And it has to definitely be one of the best choices in your entire life.
Okay. So now this brings us to the end of our podcast. And if you want to hear such podcast, keep following my channel. Yes, keep sharing it for the information that you could share with prospective students who are looking to study in Australia, specifically in Uni Sydney, since we have Tanishka from Uni Sydney. And thank you so much, Tanishka, for answering all our questions from the heart and to help my dear students.
Thank you for
so
having
much.
me here. I loved it and it was a pleasure being here.
Likewise.
Thank you.